Hello and welcome to Government Unit 5, pages 3 to 4. Let's go and get started. Now, warning, we're going to bounce around just a bit. It won't be in complete straight order on the two pages. So I would preview them first so you know what questions you're looking for. But this is going to be pretty content-packed. So, forms of government. There's 3 forms of government we're going to be talking about. There's more than this, but we're going to limit it to 3 for this video and for the test. First, we have an autocracy. We haven't used autocracy before, but it describes a kind of government where you just have one leader, like dictatorships and monarchies that we've talked about before. Most forms of tyranny come from autocracy. Oligarchy also can be forms of tyranny, as is seen in many communist countries, where there's either one leader, like an autocracy, or in cases like the Soviet Union or in China, there's just a few communist leaders that are making decisions for the entire nation. And it is not accountable to the people. They decide who takes their place after they die. There's a succession plan, and the people don't really have much say. But it's not one person, so oligarchy. And finally, there's parliamentary democracy. Here we have a lot of people in power, and they're accountable to the people because the people vote for them, and those people make decisions until we vote them out and replace them. That's parliamentary democracy. That's what we have in America, and we've talked about for the previous 4 units. Nations. Characteristics of nations include territory with borders. So, where does the country end? Where does it begin? That's a characteristic. Another characteristic is that it has a government. If you don't know what that is, you must be new to my class. Sovereignty. Sovereignty is the freedom of a people to set their own rules and laws without another country intervening. What does that mean? So, America is a sovereign nation. No one else tells us what to do. And the Native Americans, they also have a sovereign nation, many sovereign nations. Those reservations are completely controlled by those Native Americans. That was granted to them by the American government to try to kind of pay them back for everything we had done to them, our country's done to them in the past. And they have so much power, similar to a completely foreign country, that they can actually tell federal agents, you can't cross, you can't come in here. That's because they have sovereignty. Freedom to set their own rules and laws without anybody else having input. All right, national interests of a country. There are 3. One is needing a strong economy to meet their needs. And most countries don't ever stop once they get to a certain level. They want to constantly improve. So even if you have a really good standard of living, which we'll talk about in another video, let's get more. Let's build more. This is a huge source of conflict among countries. Everyone's trying to get their people the best. There's not enough resources for everybody. Conflicts happen. So that's one interest that all nations have. Another one is protecting themselves from outside attack. Terrorists is one, but also making sure your neighbors don't come in and just start taking stuff, taking pieces of your land, coming in when you don't want them to come in, protecting from outside attack. And the third interest is having a good legal system to provide order, to make sure that everyone knows what the rules are so people just don't do whatever they want to anybody and you have chaos. Have a system of rules. Make sure everyone's as clear as possible on them. Have a system of punishment for those who break those rules, and make sure that punishment is as fair as possible. A good legal system will have a lot of input from the people. A bad one will be like in an autocracy or an oligarchy where those few people or one person in control just decides what the legal system is, and hopefully it's fair, but it's up to them, not us. Colonies. Colonies are territory ruled by a more powerful nation. But why would we bother to do that? Because colony isn't making it part of our nation. It's not expanding our nation. It's just ruling another territory, but still keeping it separate and calling it colony. So the reason why is for money, to get resources, to get rich. We're talking about national interest, building up your economy. Well, what if you've already made use of all the resources in your country? Well, let's go get some other country's resources through a colony. Resources include things like, like oil, or cotton, food supplies even, water supplies. It could also mean cheap labor. You don't want to pay people higher wages in your own country? Let's go find another country where they'll do it cheap. Or to find slaves. Slavery is not as big now as it used to be, but at one point, forming colonies, a big incentive was to get slaves to bring back to your own country to use. And then also just nationalistic pride through domination. Just to have as much territory that's under your name so you can show the world, yeah, we're number one, baby. What's that word, nationalism? That's a pride in a shared history and a loyalty to your nation, which sounds like awesome, right? I mean, proud to be an American, proud to be a Canadian, proud to be a Mexican. This kind of concept didn't exist very much before the 20th century. It did a little bit in the upper classes and the wealthy elites. And even then, it was more like, well, we want our country to do well because we want to get rich from it. Not because they just loved this concept, their flags and stuff. That didn't mean that much to anybody who wasn't in the military or in the upper elites. The common people like you and me, we don't really think about that, like, proud to be an American, proud to be this country, that country. We didn't really think about that. That didn't really come until the 20th century, and it was used to get people to blindly follow their leaders. That's why I've got a picture here of a Nazi parade, because Nazis, National Socialists, are the kind of the genesis of major nationalism. Well, not so much the genesis, but where it really got ugly. The first time it really turned to a really dark place, because it can be used for good, but it can also be used for really terrible things. All right, Noah Moto, you write one good question about anything at all you saw or heard. You need to make sure you check with me before moving on to the next video. Thank you, and I'll see you in